insights, picks, results. This is Wizard Sports Picks. Beyond the Lines.
Welcome to another edition of Beyond the Lines, presented by Wizard Sports Picks for Sunday, March 29th. Ian Cameron with you, and we're going to break down a couple of games coming up on Sunday. We'll give you a preview of one of the two Elite Eight matchups in the NCAA Tournament, as teams will be punching their ticket to the Final Four on Sunday. Two more teams will. We'll preview one of the two games in the NCAA Tournament, Elite Eight for Sunday. And we will also take a look at another UFL matchup, United Football League. We broke down a UFL game Friday on Beyond the Lines, and we will look at the finale, the final game for Week 1 in the UFL, also on this edition of Beyond the Lines. But before we get to that, just want to remind you, of course, to check out wizardsportspicks.com. Daily premium picks available on the website, long-term subscription passes available, 3-day, 7-day, 30-day, 1 year, all sports, all access passes as well. So make sure you check that out. Great time of year as we enter the month of April later this week. The NCAA tournament is winding down. Final Four next weekend, but we've got NHL and NBA down the stretch of the regular season, heading into the playoffs, still ongoing each and every day. Major League Baseball now underway as the MLB season is now underway. Lots to look forward to. And CFL, which I will be handicapping at wizardsportspicks.com, will be coming in a couple of months as well. So make sure you check it out, wizardsportspicks.com. Number one ranked in both NHL and college basketball this season. I am at wizardsportspicks.com. Having a profitable NBA season as well. Really can't complain. It's been a terrific run of all sports profits. And really, to put it into perspective, just how good it's been, we've had this site going for, well, since about August, September last year. From day one at wizardsportspicks.com on the website, 625 and 534 is the record for me. 54%, 33.12 units of profit, 33.12 units of profit in all sports since day one. So that would be, for a $100 bettor, that would be $3,312 of profit. Pretty damn good. 54% over that long of a sample size, 54% over 1,100 plays in all sports. That's pretty good, pretty impressive, and it'll put money in your pocket. So make sure you get on board with me or any great handicapper at wizardsportspicks.com. All right, let's get into it. We will start with one of the two games taking place Sunday in the Elite Eight. We'll look at Duke and UConn in the East Region Final. And, of course, the winner of this punches their ticket to the Final Four. We've got Duke 5.5-point favorites here in this game. 133.5 the total across the board, pretty much. A couple 134s out there. Duke certainly got pushed by St. John's, another Big East team. On Friday night, I was able to cash a ticket with St. John's plus the points against Duke. St. John's was pretty much either leading or trailing within the number pretty much from start to finish. The one thing about Duke, they obviously got Foster back from injury, and certainly happy to have him back. And Ngungba came back as well for Duke in the tournament, the game previous to that. So there is no doubt that this is a Duke team that is certainly starting to get healthier at the right time, with obviously Caleb Foster back playing through pain. Although John Shire said after the game he had no business playing, saying that he was, really gutting it out and playing through some very, very significant pain at less than 100%. So, returning from that broken foot that he had, just how healthy is he? When you're hearing the head coach say something like that after the game, you have to ask yourself that. I don't know if this is Dan Hurley's best UConn team, but there's no denying this team has got some heart. They've got some guts. And you look at the way that game started for them so strongly against Michigan State, but Michigan State punched back, got back in it, and UConn punched back. UConn was able to, take, what Michigan State threw at them and still be able to make all the key plays down the stretch. I thought their defense was good. down the stretch. And I think what's interesting about this game here, when you compare what Duke saw against St. John's, is that the physicality and the size of St. John's and just bringing that street fight mentality to the game, it kind of got under Duke's skin. Like, that was not an easy game for Duke, and they didn't look totally comfortable and settled, in that kind of a game. Well, they're going to see a lot of that from UConn. UConn's going to make this, try to bring it into a physical style of game, really try to play, probably a little bit more of a half-court game, and they've certainly got some big bodies to be able to do that when you look at the likes of Terrace Reed Jr. and, Alex Caravan, who had a terrific game, obviously, against Michigan State, and so did Reed, for that matter. They both played well. Duke got a little bothered by that physicality of St. John's, and I wonder if that's going to get a little bit under their collar or, rattle them just a little bit here. I think if you were to measure these two rosters, you probably have to give Duke the advantage, and we've certainly seen Duke, against Siena find a way to win. TCU, they started slow. One thing to point out, too, is Duke has had slow starts. In this tournament alone, they are now, 0-3 against the spread, I believe, in the first half. The Siena game, the TCU game, and, of course, the St. John's game that kind of started slowly. So maybe you look at a UConn first half here in this game, and I might do that. But I'm also going to recommend UConn here for the full game, getting plus 5.5. I think they can compete with Duke. They're going to need probably some of their other players to have better offensive games than we saw against Michigan State, like Demery, and certainly Solo Ball. But Solo Ball did, give you 12 points. It's certainly, he's had a tough time getting his three-point shot going and having the confidence to shoot it here in this tournament. But he did have 12 points. At least was a step in the right direction from what we had seen from him in previous games. I just think UConn and Dan Hurley has done such a great job here in the NCAA tournament that I just have a difficult time thinking that this is going to be an easy game for Duke. I think UConn can stay in this game from start to finish, and there is no denying the track record whatsoever of Dan Hurley at the NCAA tournament. Entering this game on Sunday, this East Regional Final, Dan Hurley in the NCAA tournament here with the UConn Huskies, 16-3 against the spread. 19 NCAA tournament games for Dan Hurley and UConn, 16-3 against the spread in those games. And in games in the Sweet 16 round and later in the NCAA tournament for UConn and Dan Hurley. So games in the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4, or the national championship game, UConn is now a perfect 9-0 against the spread with Dan Hurley beyond the round of 32 in the NCAA tournament. So it's basically a 9-0 ATS angle that you have working in your favor if you're going to back UConn in this game. And I am going to back UConn in this game. UConn plus 5.5 against Duke. We'll go with the Huskies to at least cover the number and be competitive against Duke in the East Regional Final on Sunday in Washington. All right, let's turn our attention to a little Sunday night football. I've been waiting all day for Sunday night. Yeah, not NFL. It's not Carrie Underwood we're seeing here tomorrow night, but it is football. It is Sunday night football, and it's Sunday night UFL football, the final game for week 1 of the United Football League season. It's the Columbus Aviators taking on the Orlando Storm. We have Orlando 1.5 point favorites in this game. 40.5 to 41 is what we're looking at right now with the total here in this game. When you look at these two teams, Columbus is actually a team that is relocated from Michigan. They were the Michigan Panthers. They're now the Columbus Aviators, but they have a new coaching staff and a first-time football head coach in Ted Ginn Jr. That's right. Ted Ginn Jr. retired from playing now, but now the head coach of the Columbus Aviators. And one theme that I've hinted on throughout this weekend, and I think I might have mentioned this on Friday when we talked the Louisville-Birmingham game, talked about it with A.J. McCarron, and I feel that the same way here about Ted Ginn Jr. I think it's going to take these brand new head coaches that aren't used to coaching football at any level, let alone pro football, time to get things going and time to really get their teams playing at their best. I cashed a ticket here on this Beyond the Lines video on Friday. I recommended Louisville plus 6 against Birmingham on Friday night in UFL action, and Louisville covered wire to wire. Birmingham did win the game, but won it only by 2 points. Louisville wire to wire point spread cover. And it was a struggle for Birmingham with A.J. McCarron in his first game as head coach. And to be honest with you, it was a struggle for Louisville, too, who also had a first-time head coach in Chris Redmond, who's not coached a lot of football in the past. Well, Columbus has that same thing with Ted Ginn Jr. going into this game. So I do wonder if that Columbus team is going to suffer, and it's just going to maybe take some time for this team to get better. You contrast that to the situation for the Orlando Storm. Orlando's brought in Anthony Becht as their head coach. This is not only a guy that is coached as a head coach in the UFL for multiple years. He's been the head coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks for 3 previous seasons, 2 of them in the UFL, and one of them was, of course, in the XFL before the XFL and USFL merged to become the UFL. Well, Anthony Becht's been the head coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks for multiple seasons. He's got tons of head coaching experience in spring football, and he's had tons of success as a head coach in spring football, particularly in the regular season. Anthony Becht is 22-8 as a regular season head coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks. Now he takes over the Orlando Storm. And what I like is that he's brought some of his coaching staff and coordinators with him from St. Louis to Orlando. He's brought some of his players that he had with the St. Louis Battlehawks with him to Orlando. And I think it's going to lead right away here in week 1 to continuity and a better, greater chance for success right away compared to their opponent here, Columbus, in this first game of the season. One thing that does concern me, even though I'm putting my support behind Orlando in this game and just the coaching experience edge that they will have, I am concerned about Anthony Becht going with Jack Plummer as his quarterback. Because all along I thought Dorian Thompson-Robinson was going to get this opportunity. DTR with a great ability to make plays with his feet, dual threat. Yes, he can be a little erratic throwing the football. We saw that when he was with the Cleveland Browns in the NFL. But I thought he'd be a good fit for this offense and for this league. Yet Anthony Becht opened his the starting quarterback job up to a competition between Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Jack Plummer. Most of camp, it looked like DTR had the upper hand, but Jack Plummer performed better and better as camp progressed, and he ended up winning the job. And even though I'm a little bit, not shocked, but I'm a little surprised, I'm going to defer to Anthony Becht and say, okay, if he thinks Jack Plummer's the best quarterback for the job right now to be the starting quarterback, well, I'm going to agree. I'm going to think he's making the right decision. Kind of the way I felt about the Dallas Renegades, who on Saturday played their first game of the season against the Houston Gamblers. And they have a new head coach in Rick Neuheisel after Bob Stoops stepped down as the head coach. Rick Neuheisel's taken over Dallas. I had questions about what he decided to do at the quarterback spot. He decided to sit down a proven, winning, experienced, veteran spring football quarterback. Luis Perez had been the quarterback of Dallas for many years, and he said, Rick Neuheisel after camp, he's not my starter. I'm going to go with Austin Reed, the Western Kentucky quarterback. Western Kentucky is where Austin Reed played in college. And I questioned that a little bit, saying, well, I know you're a new head coach, and maybe Austin Reed played well in camp, but Luis Perez has been a winning quarterback. He's had lots of success. He's got tons of experience in the spring league, spring football. Austin Reed has none. Well, sure enough, Rick Neuheisel makes Austin Reed the quarterback. Austin Reed plays Saturday against Houston in the first game of the season for Dallas, and he couldn't have played any better. He was phenomenal. I believe he set a passing record over 350, I believe, something close to that, passing yards in a regular season game. Beat the previous record in his first ever UFL start and led the Dallas Renegades to a 36-17 blowout win over the Houston Gamblers on Saturday in the first game of the season. So Rick Neuheisel, at least after 1 week, clearly showed he made the right call because Austin Reed was terrific. He was spectacular in the game. There's no way Luis Perez was going to play that well. So Neuheisel made the right call. I'm going to trust Anthony Becht here with Orlando, that he's making the right decision. If he thinks Jack Plummer's the guy that played better in camp, he's the guy that's more ready, more prepared to be the starting quarterback and have success, well, I'm going to trust that he's making the right decision. This is a coach, after all, that's 22-8 as a regular season head coach here in spring football the last 3 years with the St. Louis Battlehawks. So, and also another factor here, and this is kind of why I like Louisville on the Friday Beyond the Lines video. This is Orlando, a newly relocated franchise, playing their first home game. I expect a little more of a home field edge, a little bit more of a fan enthusiasm and excitement for this game, and maybe a little bit of an added boost as far as home field is concerned than maybe we'll see at other points during the season. So you put it all together, and I'm going to recommend the Orlando Storm on the money line. Now, they're anywhere from a 1 to 1.5 point favorite. I am just going to take them on the money line here, which is minus 115 at most spots. I think the Orlando Storm, just a better situation for success coming out of the gate. Brand new, inexperienced coaching staff for Columbus, with Ted Ginn Jr. taking over as head coach, a much more experienced head coach and staff led by Anthony Becht on the Orlando side. And I think Orlando will get the job done here in their season and home opener on Sunday night. Orlando, minus 115 against Columbus for my Sunday Night Football UFL style pick here on this edition of Beyond the Lines. All right, that's a wrap for this edition of the show. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ian Cameron. Get to the website and check out wizardsportspicks.com. Enjoy the games and good luck. Have a great Sunday. Cash some tickets. I'm Ian Cameron. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching the Sunday, March 29th edition of Beyond the Lines, presented by Wizard Sports Picks.